What's the Monroe Doctrine? Will Venezuela be the first target of Trump's new MAGA Monroe Doctrine? What is it? Where did it come from? Why are we having problems with Venezuela? The Monroe Doctrine is a foreign policy doctrine. It was articulated by created by John Quincy Adams, Secretary of State, for President Monroe. And Monroe then, 1823, he was the one who introduced the policy. And effectively what the foreign policy stated was that the Western Hemisphere, North, Central, and South America was off limits to the European powers, that America would consider it hostile to the United States to intervene in any of these states, forming states, etc., established states in North, Central, South America, and that we would take action against them. And in response, if they just stayed out of the affairs of the Western Hemisphere, then America would stay out of the affairs of the European powers. The foreign policy doctrine remained in place, but it wasn't named until 1850, I think it was, for President Monroe. And at that point and moving forward, it's been cited. Now, mind you, when America first articulated this position, America had no way to enforce it. And there were some episodes after the articulation of the Monroe Doctrine where foreign states from Europe came in and still meddled a little bit, but America couldn't really do anything about it at that point. And but then in time, America developed the naval fleet and the military to do something about it. And the European powers said, you know what, we'll just stay out of the affairs over in the Americas as a consequence. And this is like a bit of the manifest destiny of Western kind here in the hemisphere, a bit of a connection. And over the years, many presidents have cited the Monroe Doctrine, a foreign policy doctrine. It is a very important foreign policy doctrine for the preservation of the United States. And technically, we Western kind are the United States. We're not in charge of our destiny. We can not even really influence it very much, obviously. But nonetheless, it's about our safety, our freedom, our etc. This is the jungle of the world that the founding fathers and those who followed were concerned about, because you can't have that nursery room of Western civilization unless you fight on a geopolitical level and you're ready to go to war and you're ready to kill for your safety, your security, and that nursery room, that then you have a lot of females of both sexes running around so deluded they think the jungle has stopped existing. Real human nature. What is the jungle? When we say the jungle outside of the nursery room, we don't mean just a physical wildness of the earth, or even specifically a jungle. We're talking about human nature, the wild, madness, murderous aspects of the human animal. And it's those who are in the West who elevate ourselves above that behavior, and it's a consequence of our biospirit, our norms, establish these sorts of positions, because sometimes the good have to be more violent than the evil. Sometimes the good have to be more rapacious than the evil. Sometimes the good have to be more sanguinary than the evil, because if they're not, the evil will triumph. That's the reality. So over the years, numerous presidents have cited the Monroe Doctrine for their actions and the United States itself and the mastery of our hemisphere Grant did, Kennedy did, Reagan did. So a bunch of presidents. And now Donald Trump as well. So what's going on with Venezuela? Now, if you are one of these anti-Jew type folks, if you're a Jewsburg, you probably love the leader of Venezuela, and that is Nicolas Maduro. And he's not a legitimate, and why would you think he is, ruler, president of Venezuela? This guy he and his cohorts, they operate, what are they called? The Cartel of the Sun, I think is what they're called. The Cartel of the Sun. This is a colossal drug cartel that has been killing countless Americans, ruining countless American homes of all races. But of course, we see the white race, especially white males, succumbing to this drug use, dying. We have people in this very community, Cockatoo, her nephew, dying as a consequence of the drugs brought in by way of this Cartel of the Sun, which Maduro and his cohorts operate. So they have been and are at war with Western kind and Western civilization. He hates America. Now, I know this is going to draw a big line between the people who are anti-Jew and the people who are white positive, because they love this guy. So many of these anti-Jews love the Western countries being harmed and undermined by non-whites, anti-whites, Hispanics down in Venezuela. They love it because they have this erroneous notion, or at least their argument is, but I submit to you, it's just another pretext. It just serves the moment. Their argument is that, well, if America, if the UK, if Germany, if they are brought low by these foreign powers, well, then we can take over. That's, of course, a childish notion, because as the countries we live in are brought down, so too are we. It's one of those, the flood raises all ships or sinks all ships. We don't get more powerful as citizens in these countries when the countries are weakened globally. As the country is weakened, we too are weakened. Logic, reason, evidence of it. Anyhow, so they're going to love people like Maduro, this filthy anti-white bastard that deserves to be executed. He deserves to be visited by the SEAL team or the Rangers or the Green Berets or whatever. And a lot of good people feel this way. This would be a very just war. Finally, we would not be fighting for Israel. Let's wipe out Venezuela, in my opinion. Install the guy Gonzalez. The United States says, what is his? It doesn't matter, his first name. Gonzalez is he's the one who actually won the presidency in Venezuela. But the drug cartel, this narco lord Maduro, wouldn't allow him to be seated. So there is this hostility between Maduro and the United States. The United States needs things like the rare earth minerals and bauxite it needs from Venezuela. And Venezuela won't cooperate. They won't let the United States have these. We need these things to compete with China, for example. The United States does, to compete with China. And we need the United States to be strong relative to China for the benefit of our civilians, for the benefit of you and me, for the benefit of the UK, for the benefit of Canada. And China has been moving in to Central and South America, as you all know very well. And Trump just pushed them out of Panama, thank God. Pushed them out of the entirety of the Americas is what should be done. So there has been a Cold War, a very Cold War between the United States and Venezuela, but more specifically, the Cartel of the Suns. I think Cartel of the Suns, plural, because they have this grip on Venezuela. Well, what happened as a consequence of that? This presidency that's stolen by Maduro. Well, Maduro and Musk have a spat going on because Musk and the platform X were enabling people supporters of Gonzalez and others who were pushing back against Maduro and the cartel and trying to wrench this country away from all the countries in Central and South America should work to the benefit of the United States. That's how it should work. Because if it's not to our benefit, and we can make sure that it benefits them as well. If it's not to our benefit, then it's going to be to China and Russia's benefit. Iran didn't go to exist much longer, but it would have been potentially to the benefit of Iran as well. So no, Jew Spurgs out. So what has Venezuela done in this Cold War? Well, of course, they're saying no bauxite for you, no rare earth minerals for you. We're pumping drugs into the United States. The killing, wiping out the population. That should be a declaration of war. I've thought that since high school. If another country is supplying drugs, destroying your population, that should be a declaration of war, and you should be able to wage war on said country until the threat is gone. And you install the people that will be beneficial to us. Why would we ever tolerate a country funneling drugs into our countries? Kill everybody involved. The only way that it can be done is because the politicians in charge don't care about the white race. They're all anti-white. That's the only way it can be done. That's the only way this has persisted. You can lay every death from drug overdose, drug warfare, ruined neighborhoods, you can lay it all at the feet of the political parties in the West, because they have been complicit in all of that death, all of that misery, all of those mothers and fathers shedding endless tears over their mostly, of course, white sons, but in some cases their daughters as well, who have died or been forced into the work for the cartels. What else has Venezuela been doing in this Cold War? They've been pumping America full of every murderer and rapist and psycho, the craziest. All of these, of course, you'll have to check out for yourself. Trump administration citing many of this, media sources citing this as well. Pumping this country. I want you to think for a moment about all of the rapes committed by Venezuelans, the gangs that took over apartment complexes, Venezuelan gangs, all of these murders, police officers shot by these intruders from Venezuela. All of them were anti-white terrorists from Venezuela. They don't have to put them in a uniform. They don't have to give them a patch with a flag on it. It was all intentional. The white race you need somebody with the agility of mind that I have. You've got to take all these white people that have this weird fixation and fetish for order. And therefore, if it's not taking place in this very specific, like boxed format, then it's not happening. You need to take all of them and say, you can work somewhere else in the administration. You can work somewhere else in the machine, because that order works well for the machine. But it doesn't work well when dealing with the anti-white demons of earth. You've got to think out of the coffin. So these anti-white terrorist soldiers don't need a flag on a patch. They don't need to say, Yavor, or whatever it is, to be an asset for this foreign aggressor. And that's what Maduro represents. What else has he done in this drug cartel to the United States? Well, he aligned with China, Russia, and Iran against the United States. He has pacts with them and etc. He's invited the Chinese to come in to exploit the minerals of which Venezuela is very rich, oil of which Venezuela is very rich, the competitor on the global stage for the United States. Things won't get better for you if the United States falls behind China. What's actually happening with these Jew haters is that they just love anything that hurts Jews, or they perceive it won't actually hurt them. They will find a way out. But anything that these midwit morons perceive as injurious or insulting to Jews, they love. And it doesn't matter how many white people it hurts, which is a great tie-in to this Robin character who was also a Jewsburg and anti-white and killed white children. What else has Maduro been up to as part of this conflict, this Cold War? Well, the United States hasn't sat there and watched. In this Cold War, the United States, even before Donald Trump, I mean, there was pushback even during Biden. The policy said that the United States has sanctions on Venezuela, on their oil, on their mining, on their finance. And the only way out of the sanctioning, the United States said, was free and fair elections. Why does the United States want free and fair elections? Do they actually mean they want free and fair elections? Of course not. The United States wants leaders in these countries that will work with the United States. And I do too. Any sane white person will want that. So the United States says we want free and fair election. I don't care what they want to call it. Cherubs in your government. Who cares? Submit. That's how the jungle works. It's either going to be to their benefit or ours. Well, how do you want it to work out? There isn't an in-between. So even during Biden, there was a respite where during the Biden administration, they said, okay, look, we'll lessen the sanctions a little bit. We just got to have some legit elections over there. You got to have some free speech over there. You got to let people speak out against the cartel of the Suns and Maduro himself and etc. They didn't do it, even though the United States sent this olive branch. And then Biden's administration even swung back into full sanctioning on Venezuela. Now, these are, of course, our acts of war. This is Cold War. What else has the United States done as part of this Cold War against Venezuela? Well, they came to the aid of it's a region that Venezuela claims, and what is it called? Essequibo, I think is what it's called, this region. And Venezuela claims that they control it, it's theirs. And the United States said, no, it's not yours. No, it's not. That's part of the Cold War. What else is part of the Cold War against Venezuela? Operating X, continuing to operate X to provide speech. People, of course, have to take these steps to be able to get on X, but the United States is continuing and they're paying for it so that these people can talk. That's part of the war against them. Supporting Gonzalez is part of the war, and so is the $10 million bounty on Maduro, the then upped to $20 or $25 million bounty on the head of Maduro, now up to $50 million on Maduro. And now what we're seeing is the Cold War with Venezuela ramping up, and ships and submarines, Marines are showing up around Venezuela, and it is positioning for warfare. Now, if Donald Trump wants to do the smart thing, it will be blitzkrieg right now. While everybody's talking about, will there be war? Is this just a positioning to threaten for war? Is this just for more pressure? While everybody is debating that and talking about it, launch the attack. Hit the nerve centers, kill Maduro with a missile from a sub or whatever it is. Occupy the government buildings. Undoubtedly, the United States has factions of the military on its side, and take Venezuela over for the United States. Finally, a war we can get behind. Venezuela has been holding like almost daily military rallies where Maduro comes out in camo and everything, and he's rallying the troops, and we'll fight these white people that try to invade.
Además de ilegal, es inmoral. Y aquí no lograrán ni colonizar, ni esclavizar, ni a Venezuela, ni a América del Sur.
America will not succeed in colonizing Venezuela using the verbiage of anti-whiteism. They will not succeed in colonizing and enslaving Venezuela. Regime change is not only illegal, but also immoral. So they will not colonize South America or our Americas. And if one day they touch Venezuela, all of South America will rise up and destroy the white race coming to colonize. President Donald Trump's deployment of warships off the coast of Venezuela and authorization for the use of force against the drug trafficking organization. Oh, what's another? I didn't finish the sentence. Another part of the Cold War against Venezuela is to classify the Cartel of the Suns as a terrorist organization, as it always should have been categorized. So the very cartel that Maduro and his cohorts operate, classified as a terrorist organization, as it should be. If they start invading Venezuela and we get any live footage of it or whatever, I will do whatever I have to do to get live myself as soon as possible so that we can celebrate and potentially pull up streams of the anti-Jews out there, the Jewsburgs, who are bemoaning and lamenting and etc. It'll be great. I'll laugh my ass off. I'll break out alcohol. It'll be a good time. We'll throw a party. Use of force drug trafficking organization fueling speculation of potential military action looming in South America. However, the White House moves also speak to a broader shift in policy focus under Trump's America First movement that envisions the Americas as a whole as part of the U.S. zone of interest, which it is. Of course. An outlook reminiscent of the 200-year-old Monroe Doctrine. So Newsweek is trying to make it sound like, oh, it's all ancient, it's wizened, it doesn't matter anymore. That served as the basis of the U.S. intervention against European colonialism and communist expansion. With Venezuela and its leftist leader, Maduro, now in the crosshairs, experts and former officials see the dawn of a new era of U.S. power projection across the Western Hemisphere. Yes, do it now. Do it now, finally, not service to Israel. This massive show of force is consistent with the administration efforts to assert dominance in the Western Hemisphere, reviving the Monroe Doctrine that declared the region to be uniquely a U.S. sphere of influence. Arnson warned of the potential regional consequences of such an approach, noting how just because many Latin American democracies would welcome the end of Maduro regime, it doesn't mean that they are lining up to applaud a 21st century version of gunboat diplomacy. Don't care. Don't care. You'll fall in line. Observers have debated whether or not who is going to back them up. Shut up, get in line, serve the United States. Are you joking? Observers have debated whether or not the recent naval buildup in the waters of South and Central America would serve as a prelude to real action or constituted mere posturing meant to deliver a message. Good Lord willing, this is not going to be some effete, ballless posturing. Don't move these vessels. You are already at war with Venezuela. You are already at war. Let's demonstrate to the rest of Central and South America that the United States is not going around anymore. The utility of such a large deployment in fighting drug trafficking is questionable. So this is an important point here. You don't need all of these ships and the Marines and etc. just to take out some drug cartel plantations and leaders, especially when the country is run by a cartel leader. Just the thing that America has to not do is go half-ass. No half-assing this. No Noriega situation again. No using Navy SEALs for where Army Rangers should be used. None of this half-assing. One fell swoop, cut the head off the dog, wipe out all of the leaders of the opposition, enthrone or the people in power, and enthrone the opposition overnight. Go hardcore. The number of troops deployed, although large, as this researcher, is not sufficient to invade with the aim of toppling the government. So there aren't enough troops, obviously, to mount a land invasion. But that doesn't mean, I mean, you can think to Noriega, that doesn't mean that American troops won't go in. This kind of quagmire warfare is out of the question. You don't want to march a bunch of troops in and then have them getting picked off forever, and it become this quagmire for the United States. Blitzkrieg its ass. Here you can see vessels, as the media already knows, triple this number, at least, especially under Trump as president. Triple that number. They're not going to be broadcasting. This isn't a cinema where you get to see every little thing that is actually being prepared for war. In a healthy country, you would know nothing. You would be told afterward. So whatever they know here, triple it. U.S.-Venezuela tensions rise as U.S. warships arrive in the Caribbean. Here's Maduro. Tensions between the United States and Venezuela are rising amid a large U.S. naval buildup in the southern Caribbean and nearby waters, which U.S. officials say aim to address threats from Latin American drug cartels. Now, I'll also point out to you the speed of U.S. ships and our aircraft and etc. Not only will they be moving without the media knowing and being able to report it to all of you, they could have very many of these ships and, of course, aircraft beyond the immediate region and have them move in overnight. The speeds that are reported for ships and jets and etc. are always less than they're actually capable. Trump has made a crackdown on drug cartels a central goal of his administration. I can't believe this is even a conversation. While the U.S. Coast Guard and Navy ships regularly operate in the Southern Caribbean, the buildup significantly larger than usual deployment in the region. A U.S. official speaking on the condition of anonymity said Thursday that 7 U.S. warships, along with 1 nuclear power, it's going to be much more than that, submarine pulling up. And Nicolas Maduro has denounced the moves. Kill him. The Pentagon has not indicated publicly what exactly the U.S. mission will be. But the Trump administration has said it can now use the military to go after drug cartels and criminal groups. And you just saw in Mexico, where the drug cartels in Mexico and the politicians that they finance are throwing punches on the politicians that are saying, yeah, bring in the Americans, let them hit these cartels. Because what happens in Venezuela? What happens in Mexico? Look at how these cartels treat their own populations. You know there are more beheadings, check it out to make sure I'm right about this, in Mexico than in the Middle East. They absolutely are monstrous to their own populations. That's how they keep everybody in line. So you'll not only will you be benefiting America, but you'll be benefiting the populations in these countries that are currently oppressed and exploited by the drug cartels. How would you like to live in fear of these horrifically violent drug cartels? Kill them where they are. You know, the Cucks had this great argument that they made when the United States is browbeaten and compelled to fight war for Israel. The Cucks come to you and they say, you got to kill them over there, or they'll end up killing us over here. Same argument for the drug cartels. Kill them over there, or they'll end up over here. Venezuela on Thursday complained to the UN Security Council about the U.S. naval buildup, accusing Washington of violating the founding UN charter. It's a massive propaganda operation to justify what the experts call kinetic action, propaganda, absolute warfare. And here I wanted to show you this before we move on. I love it. This is the State Department. There is that bastard that should be killed by America, in my opinion. Not murdered, but killed. He is responsible for the deaths of countless Americans, in my opinion, by way of the drugs that Venezuela and the psychotic people that he's pumped in and everything else, at least according to the information shared by the Trump administration. Here he is, nationality Venezuelan, Nicolas Maduro. He'll color black, I color brown. No shit. Okay, and it now says that the initial reward offered by the United States for the head of this guy was $15 million. They upped it to $25 million, and now it's at $50 million. And now the military is moving in. This is what I voted for, Trump. This is what I voted for. I don't want a Nancy Reagan, just say no. Although I actually, back in the day, I agreed with her. Just say no. If you have willpower, that's enough. But we're well beyond the just say no. Now we say, just say dead. Just say dead, Venezuela. Kick China out of Venezuela. And let's install a happy and subservient puppet regime. And anybody telling you otherwise is an enemy of Western kind.